Imagine being told you're condemned to something. Condemned to prison. Condemned to die. Condemned to suffer. The word drips with darkness, with punishment, with being trapped in something terrible you cannot escape. Now imagine being told you're condemned to freedom. It sounds like a contradiction. Freedom is what we fight for, what we celebrate, what prisoners dream about in their cells. Freedom is the opposite of condemnation. So how can you be condemned to it? How can freedom itself be a prison you cannot escape? This is exactly what the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre claimed about the human condition. He said we are condemned to be free, not blessed with freedom, not gifted freedom, condemned to it, trapped by it, burdened by it in ways we spend our entire lives trying to escape. And once you understand what he meant, once you really grasp the weight of this idea, you will never look at your choices the same way again. You will never be able to hide from the truth of what you are. You will never be able to pretend you're not responsible for the life you're living. Because according to Sartre, you are responsible. Totally, completely, absolutely responsible. For everything you've become, everything you're becoming, everything you will be. There are no excuses, no one else to blame, no circumstances that forced your hand, just you, your choices, and the crushing weight of your own freedom. This is going to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be, because Sartre's philosophy strips away every comfortable lie we tell ourselves about who we are and why we do what we do. It forces us to confront the terrifying reality that we are always choosing, always creating ourselves, always responsible, and we cannot escape it. We are condemned to be free. Let's start by breaking down what seems like a contradiction. What does it mean to be condemned to something? When we say someone is condemned, we mean they've been sentenced to punishment. A condemned prisoner waits on death row. A condemned building is marked for demolition. Condemnation is forced upon you. It's something you cannot change, cannot appeal, cannot escape. It's final, absolute, inescapable. We think of condemnation as the opposite of freedom. The condemned prisoner has lost their freedom. They're locked in a cell, stripped of choices, controlled by forces beyond their power. Freedom is what they've lost. Freedom is what condemnation takes away. So when Sartre says we're condemned to be free, he's saying something that sounds backwards, paradoxical, almost nonsensical. How can freedom be a condemnation? How can the thing we desire most be the thing we're trapped in? The answer is in the other part of Sartre's statement. We are condemned to be free because we did not create ourselves. We did not choose to exist. We did not ask to be born. We were thrown into this world without our permission, without our consent, without anyone asking if we wanted to be here. You didn't choose to exist. One day, you simply found yourself existing. You opened your eyes, and there was a world. There were other people. There was your body, your situation, your circumstances. None of it chosen. All of it given to you without your input. But here's the crucial part. Once you exist, once you're here, you have no choice but to choose. You cannot opt out of decision-making. You cannot hand over responsibility to someone else. You cannot become passive, inert, a thing that simply is, without choosing what to be. Every moment of your existence requires choice. What to do next, what to value, what to pursue, what to avoid, who to be. And these choices are yours alone. No one can make them for you. No one can take the burden from you. No one can live your life in your place. You are stuck being free whether you like it or not. You are condemned to choose, condemned to create yourself, condemned to be responsible, and you cannot escape this condemnation any more than you can escape existing. This is what Sartre means. Freedom is not a gift we receive. It's a burden we carry. It's the inescapable condition of being human. We are condemned to it from the moment we're born until the moment we die. Why does freedom feel like a burden rather than a blessing? Let's start with something simple, something you probably experienced today. Choosing what to eat for dinner seems trivial, right? But think about it carefully. You could eat anything. You could cook pasta or order pizza. You could make a salad or grab fast food. You could try a new recipe or reheat leftovers. The possibilities stretch out in every direction, limited only by what's available and what you can afford. In theory, this is wonderful. So many options, so much freedom, so many choices. In practice, it's exhausting. You stare into the refrigerator, you scroll through delivery apps, you ask your partner what they want, and they say, "I don't know." You decide. Now the responsibility is entirely on you. Whatever you choose, you own the consequences. If the meal is disappointing, it's your fault. If your partner is unhappy, you chose wrong. If you spend too much money, you made the bad decision. And you knew this before you chose. You knew that choosing meant taking responsibility. So you hesitated. You put off the decision. You hoped someone else would decide for you. But eventually, you had to choose. You had to take the weight of that responsibility. Now multiply this by every decision in your life. What career to pursue, whether to stay in a relationship or leave, what values to hold, what beliefs to adopt, how to spend your time, what risks to take, what sacrifices to make, where to live, who to trust, what to fight for, what to let go. Every single moment of your existence is saturated with choice, and every choice is yours alone to make. You might ask for advice, but choosing whom to ask is also your choice. And you know, before you even ask, what kind of advice each person will give. You choose the advisor knowing what advice they'll offer. So seeking advice is just another way of choosing while pretending you're not. Your parents cannot live your life for you. They can offer guidance, but you choose whether to follow it. Your friends cannot make your decisions. They can support you, but the choice remains yours. Your therapist cannot tell you what to do. They can help you understand yourself, but they cannot choose for you. Even God, if you believe in Him, cannot remove the burden of choice. You must choose to believe. You must choose to follow His commandments. You must choose how to interpret His will. Even divine revelation requires human interpretation. Even religious obedience is a choice you make. You are radically alone in your freedom. You are the only person inside your consciousness, the only person who will live with your choices, the only person who experiences your life from the inside, the only person responsible for what you make of your existence. This is why Sartre calls it condemnation, because it's inescapable, because it's total, because it's absolute, because from the moment you gain consciousness until the moment you lose it, you cannot stop being free. You cannot stop choosing. You cannot stop creating yourself through your actions. Even if you try to escape responsibility, that's a choice. Even if you pretend you have no options, that's a choice. Even if you hide from your freedom, that's a choice. There is no way out. You are condemned to be free. Most people cannot handle this truth. The weight of total responsibility is too crushing. The vertigo of absolute freedom is too disorienting. The burden of creating ourselves is too heavy. So we lie. We tell ourselves elaborate stories about why we're not really free. We construct defenses against the truth of our condition. We hide from our freedom in 1,000 different ways. We say, "I have to work this job." Not, "I choose to work this job because I value financial security more than I value pursuing my passion." We pretend the job is forced on us by necessity, by bills, by circumstances. But it's not. We're choosing to stay. We could quit tomorrow. We could take the risk, face the uncertainty, pursue something else. We don't, because we've chosen not to, but we pretend we have no choice. We say, "I have to stay in this relationship." Not, "I choose to stay because I fear being alone more than I resent being unhappy." We pretend we're trapped by children, by finances, by what people will think. But we're not trapped. We're choosing to stay. Every single day, we're making that choice. We could choose differently. We don't because we've decided the costs of leaving are higher than the costs of staying. But we pretend we have no choice. We say, "I have to believe what my religion teaches." Not, "I choose to adopt these beliefs because they give me comfort and community." We pretend the beliefs are simply true, simply obvious, simply necessary. But they're not. We chose this religion over others. We choose to interpret it this way rather than that way. We choose to continue believing rather than questioning, but we pretend we have no choice. The phrase "I have to" appears constantly in our speech, in our thoughts, in our justifications for our lives, as if external forces control us like puppets, as if we're victims of circumstances, fate, biology, society, history, as if we have no agency, no power, no freedom. This is what Sartre calls bad faith, mauvaise foi in French, the lie we tell ourselves to escape the weight of freedom, the self-deception that allows us to avoid responsibility, the pretense that we're not choosing when we're always choosing, and we're all guilty of it. Every single person, every single day, in small ways and large ways, in trivial decisions and life-defining moments, the office worker who hates their job but returns to it Monday after Monday, year after year. They tell themselves they have no choice, no options, no alternatives. They say, "I have to pay bills," or "I have to support my family," or "I have to maintain my standard of living." But these are choices. They're choosing financial security over career satisfaction. They're choosing comfort over risk. They're choosing the known over the unknown. And that's fine. That's their right. But the bad faith is in denying it's a choice at all. The unhappy spouse who stays in a dead marriage year after year, decade after decade, by finances, by children, by religious obligations, by what their friends will think, by fear of loneliness, by the complications of divorce. But they're not trapped. They're choosing to stay. Every single morning, they wake up next to their partner. They're choosing to remain in that relationship. They could choose differently. They could leave, could start over, could face the difficulties of separation. They don't, because they've decided staying is less painful than leaving. But they pretend they have no choice. The political partisan who defends their side no matter what, who cannot question their party's positions, who attacks anyone who disagrees. They act as if their political beliefs are natural, obvious, inevitable, as if they were born conservative or liberal, born to hold these specific views on these specific issues. But they weren't. They chose these beliefs. They chose to adopt their party's positions. They chose to stop questioning, to stop examining, to stop considering alternatives. They could change their mind tomorrow if they wanted. But changing would mean admitting they were wrong before. Easier to pretend they never chose at all. The consumer who says, "I have to have this," must have the newest phone, the luxury car, the designer clothes, the bigger house. They say, "I need it for work," or "I need it to keep up," or "I need it to be happy." But they don't need it. They want it, and wanting it is perfectly fine. Desire is human. But the bad faith is in pretending desire is necessity, in treating choice as compulsion, in denying that you're choosing to prioritize material acquisition over other values like savings, simplicity, or environmental responsibility. The workaholic who says, "I have no choice. I have to work these hours. Bills to pay, family to support, career to build, competition to beat. All real pressures, all real constraints." But working 80 hours a week is a choice. Checking email at midnight is a choice. Missing your child's recital is a choice. Sacrificing your health is a choice. You're choosing work over other values. Maybe for good reasons. Maybe those reasons make sense to you, but they're still reasons you've chosen to prioritize. The bad faith is in denying your choosing. We do this constantly because freedom is exhausting. Responsibility is crushing. Admitting we're creating ourselves through our choices is too frightening to face directly for very long. Easier to pretend we're determined by biology, by upbringing, by trauma, by society, by circumstances, by forces beyond our control. Easier to say, "I have no choice," than to own the choices we make. Easier to claim we're victims than to accept we're authors. But there's a cost to this lie, and the cost is authenticity. The cost is living as a thing rather than as a person. The cost is becoming an object rather than remaining a subject. The cost is existing in bad faith rather than living in truth. And deep down, Beneath all our lies and rationalizations and excuses, we know it. We know we're free. We know we're choosing. We know we're responsible, and that knowledge haunts us no matter how hard we try to hide from it. Now we need to understand the foundation of Sartre's philosophy, the idea that makes everything else make sense. The revolutionary claim that overturns thousands of years of thinking about what it means to be human. Existence precedes essence. 3 words. That's all. But they change everything. What does this actually mean in concrete terms? Let's break it down piece by piece. Start with essence. The essence of something is its nature, its purpose, its definition. It's what the thing fundamentally is. It's the reason the thing exists. A knife has an essence. Its essence is to cut. That's what it's for, what it's designed to do, what makes it a knife rather than something else. And here's the crucial part. The essence of the knife existed before the knife itself existed. Before the blacksmith forged the blade, he had an idea of what a knife is, what it does, what purpose it serves. The essence was in his mind first. Then, he created an object to fulfill that essence. Essence preceded existence. The same is true for a table, a chair, a computer, a house. Human beings create tools and objects with purposes in mind. We conceive of what we want the thing to do, then we bring it into existence to serve that purpose. For everything humans make, essence precedes existence. For most of human history, people thought human beings worked the same way. We assumed that God created humans with a purpose, an essence, a specific nature, that he had a plan for what humans should be, what we're supposed to do, how we're meant to live, that our essence was determined before we existed, just like the knife's essence was determined before the knife existed. If you believe humans were created by God, then you believe we have a predetermined nature. We're supposed to worship him, or to be rational, or to dominate the earth, or to love our neighbors, or to follow his commandments. Whatever the specific theology, the structure is the same. Essence precedes existence. God knew what humans should be before he created us. This gives life meaning. You exist for a reason. You have a purpose. Your job is to fulfill your essence, to become what you were meant to be, to follow the plan laid out for you. There's comfort in this. Guidance, direction, certainty, but there's also a cost. And the cost is freedom. If you have a predetermined essence, you're not really free. You're supposed to be a certain way. You're supposed to do certain things. You have a nature that defines you. Deviating from your essence is failure, is sin, is going against your nature. You're like a knife trying to be a spoon. Unnatural, wrong, a distortion of what you were meant to be. Now enter atheism, not just as intellectual position, but as lived reality. If there is no God, then there is no cosmic designer, no creator with a plan, no divine mind that conceived of human nature before bringing humans into existence. If there is no God, then humans have no predetermined purpose, no essence waiting to be fulfilled, no nature we're supposed to conform to, nothing we're meant to be. Instead, we simply exist first. We appear in the world without purpose, without meaning, without definition, without essence. We just are, thrown into existence without anyone having decided what we're for. And only afterward, only through living, only through choosing and acting, do we create our essence. We define ourselves by what we do. We make ourselves through our choices. We become through our actions. Existence precedes essence. This is the revolutionary claim, and its implications ripple outward in every direction, overturning everything we thought we knew about human nature, identity, morality, and meaning. This is harsh. This is uncomfortable. This is uncompromising. We want to believe we're defined by our intentions, by what we mean to do, what we try to do, what we want to do. We say, I meant well, or I tried my best, or I wanted to help. We think these intentions matter, that they count, that they're part of who we are. Sartre says no, says they're irrelevant, says you are the sum of your actions and nothing more. The person who says they value family but never calls their parents. They don't actually value family. They value the idea of valuing family. They value feeling like a person who values family. But their essence, their reality, their truth is revealed through action. And their actions show they neglect their family. That's what they are, not what they claim to be, not what they wish to be, what they actually do. The person who says they care about the environment but drives everywhere, eats meat daily, buys disposable everything, never recycles, never considers their impact. They don't care about the environment. They care about appearing to care. They care about feeling like they care. But caring requires action, and action reveals essence. Their essence is not environmentalist. Their essence is consumer, who feels vaguely guilty about consuming. The person who says they're an artist but never makes art, who talks about their creative projects but never starts them, who has ideas and visions and dreams but produces nothing. They're not an artist. They're someone who wishes they were an artist. Someone who identifies with the concept of being an artist. But without the action, without the work, without the creation, the essence doesn't exist. This applies to every aspect of identity. The activist who never acts is not an activist. The friend who disappears when you need them is not really a friend. The person who calls themselves honest but lies constantly is not honest. The person who claims to be brave but runs from every confrontation is not brave. Essence is not inner truth waiting to be discovered. It's not a fixed nature you were born with. It's not a personality type revealed by a test. It's outer reality being created through choice, through accumulated actions, through patterns of behavior built up over time. You don't find yourself. You make yourself. Every action is a brick in the building of who you are. Every choice adds to the structure of your essence, and the building is never finished until you die. This means you can always change. Right now, this moment, you can become different by acting differently. The coward who commits one brave act begins to become brave. Courage is not an innate quality you either have or lack. It's accumulated action. It's a pattern built up through repeated choices. Do enough brave things, and you become a brave person. Not because you discovered your true nature, but because you created a new essence through new actions. The selfish person who performs one generous deed begins to become generous. Generosity is not a personality trait determined by genes or upbringing. It's behavior. It's choice. It's action repeated until it becomes pattern. Give enough and you become a giver, not because you were always secretly generous inside, but because you made yourself generous through giving. No one is fixed. No one is determined. No one is doomed to remain what they've been. At any moment, you can choose differently, and in choosing differently, you become different. Your essence changes because essence is nothing but accumulated action. This is radically empowering and radically terrifying at the same time. Empowering because you're not stuck. Your past does not determine your future. Your genes do not write your story. Your upbringing does not seal your fate. The person you've been is not the person you must continue to be. You can reinvent yourself at 40, at 60, at 80. You can become someone new by acting like someone new. Terrifying because there's no one else to blame. If you're unhappy, you chose it. If you're unfulfilled, you created it. If your life isn't what you want, whose fault is that? Not your parents, not your circumstances, not your bad luck, not your trauma. Yours. You made yourself through your choices. You are what you've done, and if you don't like what you are, the only person who can change it is you. This is why people resist this idea so strongly. It's too much responsibility, too much weight, too much freedom. Easier to believe we have a fixed nature, easier to blame our circumstances, easier to claim we're victims of forces beyond our control. But Sartre refuses the easy comfort of these lies. He insists on the truth. You are what you do, not what you intended, not what you wished, not what you claimed, what you actually did in the world. That's your essence. That's who you are. That's the person you've created through your accumulated choices. If existence precedes essence, then there is no such thing as human nature. No universal traits that all humans share by necessity. No biological imperatives that excuse behavior. No evolutionary programming that determines choices. No fixed essence that defines what it means to be human. This is not a popular claim. Most people believe deeply in human nature. They think there are things humans are just naturally like, that we have innate characteristics, built-in tendencies, predetermined dispositions. They say humans are naturally selfish, naturally competitive, naturally aggressive, naturally tribalistic, naturally lazy, naturally fearful of difference, naturally prone to violence, hierarchy, dominance, territorialism. They point to biology, to evolution, to animal behavior, to cross-cultural patterns. They say this is just how humans are. This is our nature. Sartre rejects all of it, not the facts themselves. Yes, we have bodies. Yes, we have drives and instincts and biological tendencies. Yes, evolution shaped us. Yes, there are patterns across cultures. But these facts do not determine what we do with them. They do not remove our freedom. They do not eliminate choice. Hunger is facticity, the given fact of having a body that needs food. But what you eat is freedom. Whether you eat meat or go vegetarian, whether you overeat or practice restraint, whether you share food or hoard it. These are choices. Biology gives you hunger. You decide what to do about it. Sexual desire is facticity, the given fact of having a body with drives. But what you do about those drives is freedom. Whether you pursue casual encounters or seek committed relationship, whether you pressure someone or respect their boundaries, whether you act on every impulse or exercise self-control. These are choices. Biology gives you desire. You decide what to do with it. Anger is facticity, the emotion that arises in response to perceived threat or injustice. But whether you hit someone is freedom, whether you yell or stay calm, whether you seek revenge or let it go, whether you use anger as fuel for positive change or let it destroy relationships. These are choices. Your body produces anger. You decide what to do with it. Every appeal to human nature is suspect. Every claim that humans are naturally this way or that way is an attempt to excuse behavior, to deny responsibility, to pretend we're determined when we're actually choosing. Men are not naturally aggressive. Men choose aggression. They're taught it's acceptable, even admirable. They're rewarded for it socially. They practice it until it becomes pattern. And they can choose differently, can choose gentleness, cooperation, peaceful conflict resolution. The fact that many men choose aggression does not make it natural or inevitable. Women are not naturally nurturing. Women are taught to nurture, pressured to nurture, praised for nurturing, and criticized for not nurturing. They respond to these pressures by developing nurturing behaviors. And they can choose differently, can choose ambition over caretaking, career over family, self-development over self-sacrifice. The fact that many women nurture does not make it their nature. Humans are not naturally selfish. We choose selfishness or generosity in each moment based on what we value, what we've practiced, what we believe will serve us. We're capable of extraordinary altruism and extraordinary cruelty, capable of self-sacrifice and self-aggrandizement, capable of cooperation and competition. What we become depends on what we choose, not on some fixed nature pulling our strings. The appeal to nature is always bad faith. It's using biology as an excuse for behavior, using evolution as a justification for inequality, using tradition as a reason to avoid change. It's denying freedom by claiming determinism. It's escaping responsibility by pretending we have no choice. Sartre refuses this escape route. He insists we are not animals driven by instinct. We are consciousness. We are freedom. We are possibility. We can always act against our inclinations. Can choose altruism despite selfish impulses. Can choose peace despite aggressive tendencies. Can choose change despite comfortable habits. This doesn't mean it's easy. Facticity is real. Bodies are real. Circumstances are real. Biology exerts real influence. Social conditioning shapes us. Evolutionary history affects us. These are all facts of our situation, but they don't remove freedom. They situate it. You're free within your situation, not free from it. The situation constrains what's possible, but doesn't determine what you'll choose among the possibilities. The poor person cannot choose to be rich immediately, cannot snap their fingers and change their economic class, but they can choose how to respond to poverty, with dignity or despair, with resistance or resignation, with solidarity or resentment, with efforts to change their situation or acceptance of it. The poverty is facticity. The response is freedom. The sick person cannot choose to be healthy, cannot will away their illness through positive thinking, but they can choose their attitude toward illness, acceptance or bitterness, growth or stagnation, finding meaning in suffering or sinking into meaninglessness. The illness is facticity. The relationship to illness is freedom. Viktor Frankl, in the Nazi concentration camps, could not choose freedom from imprisonment, could not choose to stop the horrors around him, could not choose to save those being murdered, but he could choose how to bear his situation, could choose what it meant to him, could choose who to be within it, could choose whether to maintain dignity or collapse into despair. And he insisted that this choice, this last human freedom to choose one's attitude, was what made life meaningful, even in hell. Sartre would agree. That choice, that freedom within the situation, is what makes us human. Not reason, though we have it. Not language, though we use it. Not tool-making, though we excel at it. But the capacity to transcend our situation through choice, to give meaning where none exists, to create value where nothing is guaranteed, to become more than what our circumstances would make us. This is what separates humans from things. A rock has no freedom. It simply is what it is, cannot transcend its nature, cannot choose to be otherwise. A plant grows according to its nature, cannot decide to be different, cannot transcend its programming. Even animals, though they have some agency, are largely governed by instinct. They act according to their nature, with limited capacity to choose differently. But humans are radically different. We are the beings whose existence precedes essence, who have no predetermined nature, who must create ourselves through choosing, who cannot be reduced to biology, to circumstances, to any fixed essence. And this is why we are condemned to be free, because unlike rocks and plants and animals, we cannot simply be what we are. We must choose what to be, must create our essence through accumulated actions, must bear the responsibility of making ourselves. We didn't ask for this burden, didn't choose to be the kind of beings who must choose. But here we are, existing without essence, forced to create meaning through freedom, condemned to the weight of our own possibilities. Sartre identifies three fundamental moods or conditions that characterize human existence. Not emotions exactly, though they're related to emotions, but deeper structures, ways of being that arise necessarily from the human condition, from being condemned to be free. He calls them anguish, abandonment, and despair, and understanding them is crucial to understanding what it means to exist without essence, to be thrown into freedom without choosing it, to face the burden of creating yourself. Anguish is not fear. We often confuse them, use the words interchangeably, but they're fundamentally different. Fear has an object. You're afraid of something specific, the tiger approaching, the exam tomorrow, the rejection you might face, the heights you're standing on. Something external threatens you, something you can point to, identify, potentially avoid, or overcome. Anguish has no external object. It doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, from confronting your own freedom, from facing the abyss of your own possibilities. Here's the classic example. You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Beautiful view, solid ground, no wind. You feel fear of falling, fear of losing your balance, fear of the rocks crumbling beneath you, fear of being pushed by someone behind you. These are all external threats, things that might happen to you. This is fear, but underneath is something deeper, darker, more unsettling, anguish before the possibility of throwing yourself off. Nothing prevents you from jumping, except your choice not to. The railing isn't high enough to stop you. Your companion isn't strong enough to restrain you. The distance to the edge isn't far enough to protect you. Your life depends entirely on your choice to keep choosing life. This is anguish. Not fear of external threat, but confrontation with internal freedom. Realizing that nothing guarantees your next action. That you could do anything. That between this moment and the next moment is a gap of pure freedom, where anything is possible. You could jump. You could push someone else. You could turn around and walk away. You could sit down and cry. You could laugh at the absurdity. You could do something you've never done before. Never imagined doing. Never thought possible. Because you're free. Radically. Absolutely. Terrifyingly free. The gambler experiences this anguish acutely. He resolved yesterday never to gamble again. Made a firm decision. Truly meant it. Understood the damage gambling has caused. Committed to change. Today he walks past the casino. Yesterday's resolution doesn't bind him. Yesterday me made a decision. But today me is free. Must choose again not to gamble. Must remake the decision in this new moment. Cannot rely on past commitment to determine present action. And knowing this creates anguish. He cannot trust himself. Cannot guarantee his future actions. Cannot be certain he'll choose well. The resolution is not a fact that determines his behavior. It's just a past choice that has no power over this present moment, except the power he chooses to give it. The military commander feels this anguish when sending troops into battle. Orders come from above, but orders are never perfectly clear, never cover every circumstance, never determine exactly what to do in the chaos of reality. He must interpret the orders, must apply general principles to specific situations, must use judgment, make calls, decide in uncertainty. Men will die because of his decisions, not because of the orders themselves, but because of how he chose to interpret and implement them. No algorithm can decide for him. No rulebook covers every possibility. No perfect guidance exists. He alone must choose, knowing people will die based on his choice, knowing he might be wrong, knowing he'll never be certain he did the right thing. And the weight of that choosing, that freedom, that responsibility is anguish. The parent making decisions for their child. What school to send them to, what values to teach, what discipline to impose, what freedoms to grant, what religion to raise them in, or whether to raise them without religion, what activities to encourage, what dangers to protect them from, and what risks to let them take. Every choice shapes another human being. Get it wrong, and you might damage them forever. Impose too much control and stifle their development. Give too much freedom and fail to guide them. Push too hard and break their spirit. Don't push enough and leave them unprepared. The possibilities for failure spread out in every direction, and there's no perfect manual, no guaranteed method, no way to know for certain you're doing it right. Child-rearing books contradict each other. Experts disagree. What worked for one child fails for another. You must choose without certainty, must commit without guarantee, must act without knowing if you're helping or harming. And that's anguishing. Most people flee from anguish, cannot bear to face the groundlessness of their own freedom, so they develop strategies to avoid confronting it. They pretend their choices are forced. They say, "I have no choice," to avoid feeling the weight of choosing. They treat their actions as determined by circumstances, leaving no room for the anxiety of freedom. They develop routines that eliminate decision-making. Do the same thing every day, so they don't have to choose. Wake at the same time, eat the same breakfast, take the same route to work, follow the same patterns. Routine creates the illusion of necessity, of being on rails, of having no choice but to continue. They follow rules that remove responsibility. If the rule tells them what to do, they're just following orders, just doing what they're supposed to. The rule decides, not them. The rule is responsible, not them. They're just obeying. They submit to authorities that tell them what to do. The boss, the parent, the priest, the guru, the political leader, someone who will make decisions for them, give them direction, tell them how to live. transfer the burden of freedom to someone else. All of these are strategies to avoid anguish, to escape the confrontation with freedom, to pretend we're not choosing when we're always choosing. But anguish remains, lurking beneath the surface, breaking through in moments when routines fail, when rules don't apply, when authorities disagree, when we're forced to face a decision we cannot avoid. In moments of crisis, when everything familiar collapses. In sleepless nights, when we question everything we've done. In the gap between who we are and who we wanted to be. In the recognition that we've wasted years following a path we never really chose. Anguish is the price of consciousness, the cost of being human rather than thing. And Sartre says, we must face it, not flee from it, must acknowledge it, not hide from it, must accept it as the fundamental condition of our existence. Authentic existence requires acknowledging anguish, accepting that you are groundless, unfounded, free, that every moment is new choice, new responsibility, new creation, that nothing guarantees you'll choose well, that you could always choose otherwise, that your life depends entirely on choices you keep making moment to moment without certainty, without guidance, without guarantee. This is anguish, and we are all subject to it, all vulnerable to it, all condemned to feel it, whenever we face the truth of our freedom. The second existential condition is abandonment, or forsakenness, or forlornness. Different translators use different English words for the French délaissement, but they all point to the same terrifying reality. We are alone. Specifically, we are alone because God does not exist. Now, you might believe in God, might think Sartre was wrong about this, but follow the logic anyway, because even believers face the problem Sartre identifies. If there is no God, then there is no cosmic authority, no transcendent judge, no universal lawgiver, no source of objective moral values, no one who decided what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, what humans should do and shouldn't do. The universe is silent, indifferent, empty of inherent meaning. The stars don't care about human affairs. The laws of physics are not moral laws. Nature follows patterns, but those patterns don't tell us how to live. Reality simply is. It gives us no guidance, no direction, no purpose. Everything is permitted, as Dostoevsky said, not because nothing matters, but because no authority exists to forbid anything, no cosmic parent to tell us what's allowed, no divine will imposing limits, no transcendent moral law written into the fabric of reality. We are thrown into existence without a manual, no instructions for how to live, no authority to consult, no parent figure to guide us home. We must create meaning ourselves, must invent values, must choose principles, must define good and bad, all by ourselves, without help, without guarantee. This is abandonment. Being abandoned by God, by the universe, by any source of objective meaning, left alone to figure everything out, left to create values in a valueless cosmos, left to make choices without any foundation for those choices. Even if you believe in God, Sartre says, you face abandonment because you must choose to believe, must interpret what God wants, must decide which religious authority to trust, must select which scripture to follow and how to interpret it. The Bible says many things, some seemingly contradictory. Love your enemies, but also destroy the Canaanites. Turn the other cheek, but also overturn the money changers' tables. Obey authority, but also obey God, rather than men when they conflict. You must choose which verses to emphasize. You must interpret what they mean. You must decide how to apply them to situations they don't explicitly address. Even believers are abandoned to their own choice. Even religious people must interpret, must decide, must take responsibility for how they understand and follow their faith. God, even if he exists, does not remove the burden, does not make choices for you, does not eliminate your freedom. Sartre tells a story from the war. A student came to him, torn between two moral obligations. His mother was ill, dependent on him, would suffer terribly if he left, but his country was occupied by Nazis. The resistance needed fighters. Justice demanded action against evil. Should he stay and care for his mother who needs him, or leave and join the fight against Nazi occupation? Both choices seem right. Both seem morally necessary. But he cannot do both. Must choose one, which means abandoning the other. He sought advice from Sartre, wanted the philosopher to tell him what to do, wanted a moral principle that would decide the matter, wanted someone to take responsibility from him. Christian doctrine says honor your father and mother, but Christian doctrine also says resist evil and defend the innocent. Which commandment wins? Who decides? How do you know? Sartre told him, "You are free, therefore choose." But this wasn't the answer the student wanted. He wanted certainty, wanted guidance, wanted someone to make the decision so he wouldn't have to bear the weight. Sartre refused because abandonment means no one can. Even the philosopher cannot decide for you. Even moral principles cannot eliminate choice. Even divine commands require interpretation and prioritization. And here's the crucial insight. Even seeking advice is choosing. You choose which advisor to ask, and you know, before you ask, what kind of advice they'll give. Ask a priest. Get religious advice weighted toward tradition and obedience. Ask your mother. Get advice weighted toward staying. Ask your comrades in the resistance. Get advice weighted toward fighting. Choosing the advisor is choosing the answer. You cannot escape responsibility by outsourcing decision. Cannot eliminate your freedom by consulting authority. Cannot avoid choice by following someone else's guidance. Because choosing to consult, choosing whom to consult, choosing whether to follow their advice, all of these are your choices. Sartre also tells of a Jesuit he met in a prison camp, a man who had failed at everything. Failed in school, failed in relationships, failed in multiple careers. Nothing worked out for him. Everything he tried turned to failure. He could have interpreted these failures many ways, as sign of his own inadequacy, as bad luck, as unjust world, as reason to give up. But he chose to interpret them as a sign from God, a message that he was not meant for secular success, that only religious life was his calling, that all these failures were divine guidance, pointing him toward the priesthood. He entered a religious order and found peace, found purpose, found meaning in his failures by reinterpreting them through religious lens. But Sartre points out the crucial fact. He chose that interpretation, could have drawn completely different conclusions from the same series of failures, could have decided to become a carpenter, work with his hands, find meaning in simple craft, could have become a revolutionary, channel his frustration into political action, fight against the system that seemed to reject him, could have tried harder, changed his approach, persevered until he succeeded. He gave the failures meaning. The failures themselves didn't have inherent meaning. They were just facts, events, things that happened. He interpreted them as signs from God. But interpretation is choice. The signs don't speak themselves. We speak for them. We interpret the signs. We create the significance. We give meaning to events that have no meaning in themselves. World does not speak. We speak for it. We tell the story. We create the narrative. We decide what things mean. And in doing so, we take responsibility. Cannot blame God for our interpretation. Cannot blame signs for how we read them. Cannot blame circumstances for the meaning we assign them. This is abandonment. Being without excuse. Whatever you choose, you chose it. Whatever you become, you made yourself. Whatever meaning your life has, you created it. Alone. Without help. Without guarantee. Without anyone to consult who can remove the burden from you. The universe doesn't care about your choices. Society might judge them, but society is just other people, equally abandoned, equally alone, equally making it up as they go. The stars will burn on indifferent to human meaning. Nothing guarantees your choices are right. Nothing ensures your values are true. Nothing confirms your life has the meaning you give it. You are abandoned to your freedom, and you cannot escape it, cannot transfer it, cannot eliminate it, can only face it or flee from it, can only acknowledge you're choosing or pretend you're not. The third existential condition is despair. The word sounds like depression, like giving up, like nihilistic resignation, but Sartre means something specific and different, something that actually leads to action rather than paralysis. Despair means acting without hope, recognizing that outcomes are beyond your control, that other people are free and therefore unpredictable, that external events are uncertain, that you cannot guarantee success, cannot ensure results, cannot make everything work out. You can only control your own choices and commitment. Everything else is outside your power. Other people will do what they choose. Circumstances will develop as they will. The world will respond in ways you cannot predict, and you must act anyway. Must choose despite uncertainty. Must commit without guarantee. This is despair. Not loss of hope exactly, but refusal of false hope, recognition of limits, acceptance that you cannot control everything, letting go of the fantasy that if you just do everything right, everything will work out. The revolutionary working for social change feels this despair, working to overthrow oppression, to create a better society, to transform the world, might dedicate their whole life to the cause, sacrifice comfort, safety, personal happiness for the revolution, but they cannot guarantee the revolution will succeed. Might be arrested before it happens, might be killed in the fighting, might be forgotten by history. The revolution might come long after they're dead, too late for them to see it, or might never come at all, might fail completely. All their sacrifice might achieve nothing. Despair means recognizing this and acting anyway, committing fully without assurance of outcome, doing what's right because it's your choice, your commitment, your project, not because success is guaranteed, not because history is on your side, not because God will reward you, but because this is what you choose to fight for. Win or lose, succeed or fail, remembered or forgotten. The artist creating work that might never be seen, pouring time and soul and craft into paintings, novels, music, films, might be rejected by galleries, ignored by critics, forgotten by audiences, might labor in obscurity their entire life, might be discovered centuries later when they're dead and cannot enjoy it, might touch one person deeply and no one else, might affect no one at all, cannot control reception, cannot guarantee impact, cannot make people see what you've made, appreciate what you've created, understand what you meant, can only create, can only put the work into the world, can only commit to the practice, regardless of outcome. The parent raising children as best they can, teaching values, providing support, offering guidance, making sacrifices, cannot control who their children become, might do everything right and children still suffer, might make mistakes and children still flourish. So many variables beyond your influence, other people, society, genes, circumstances, chance, luck, can only do your best, can only love them, can only try to prepare them, can only offer what you have to offer. Then let go. Accept that their lives are theirs to live, not yours to control. Accept uncertainty. Accept that you might fail despite trying. Accept that you'll never know for certain if you did enough, did it right, helped, or hurt. This is despair. Recognizing the limits of your power while still exercising what power you have. Hell is other people. Sartre famously wrote in his play, No Exit, often misunderstood as simple misanthropy, as hatred of humanity, as antisocial attitude. But he meant something more specific and more profound. Other people are radically free, just as free as you are. You cannot control them, cannot manipulate them reliably, cannot guarantee their responses, cannot make them do what you want, feel what you want, be what you want. The lover cannot make the beloved love them back, can pursue, can court, can demonstrate affection, but the beloved's response is their freedom. They choose whether to return love. They choose whether to stay or leave. They choose whether to remain faithful or betray. Their freedom is absolute, and the lover cannot remove it, cannot constrain it, cannot determine it. The friend cannot force friendship to continue, can be loyal, supportive, present, but the friend's commitment is their choice. They might grow distant, might find new friends, might move away geographically or emotionally, might betray you, might simply stop caring. Their freedom to end the friendship is absolute, and you cannot prevent it. The leader cannot ensure followers will follow, can inspire, can command, can threaten, can persuade. But whether anyone actually follows is their choice. They might obey or rebel, might support or undermine, might stay loyal or switch allegiance. Their freedom is not yours to control. All human relationships involve other freedoms, and other freedoms are unpredictable, uncontrollable, absolute. Your project depends on cooperation you cannot command. Your goals require responses you cannot guarantee. Your life intersects with other lives that go their own way, regardless of your plans. This is hell. This is despair. Other people's freedom limiting yours. Other people's choices affecting yours. Other people's projects interfering with yours. The fundamental uncertainty of existing in a world with other free consciousnesses. But despair does not mean paralysis, does not mean giving up, does not mean withdrawing from action. Sartre insists on exactly the opposite. Despair should lead to action, because waiting for guarantees means never acting. Hoping for divine intervention means abdicating responsibility. Trusting in historical inevitability means passivity. Believing that everything will work out means doing nothing while hoping someone else will solve the problem. Despair clears away false hopes, destroys comfortable illusions, leaves you face to face with what you actually can control. Your choices, your commitment, your actions, nothing more, but also nothing less. The resistance fighter Sartre knew during the Nazi occupation, could not know if resistance would defeat the Nazis, could not guarantee France would be liberated, could not control Allied strategy or German response, could not ensure their actions would matter or even be remembered, could only choose. Resist or collaborate, fight or submit, risk or hide, and in choosing resistance, accept all consequences, torture if caught, death in fighting, failure of the cause, meaninglessness of sacrifice. Still worth doing because it's the right choice, their commitment, not because it will succeed, but because it's who they choose to be. This is despair in Sartre's sense, not depression but clarity, not giving up but focusing, not hopelessness but realism, recognizing what you can and cannot control, accepting uncertainty, committing despite it. Despair is the wisdom of finite beings, who cannot control everything, but can control something, who cannot guarantee outcomes, but can guarantee effort, who cannot escape death, but can choose how to live, who cannot force meaning into existence, but can create meaning through choice, acting in full knowledge that you might fail, choosing in full awareness that nothing is guaranteed, committing despite uncertainty, because of your freedom. This is the existential mood called despair. And it's not paralysis. It's the foundation of authentic action. Now we come to perhaps the most important concept in Sartre's philosophy, the one that explains why, despite being free, most people live as if they're not. The one that reveals how we hide from our freedom, how we escape responsibility, how we lie to ourselves constantly about what we are. Bad faith, mauvaise foi in French, the lie we tell ourselves, the self-deception that characterizes most human existence, the flight from freedom that defines how most people live most of the time. How do you lie to yourself? Think about it logically. Lying requires knowing the truth and telling a falsehood. If someone lies to you, they know what's true, but they tell you something false. That's what makes it a lie. But if you lie to yourself, you're both the liar and the one being lied to. You're the one who knows the truth, and you're the one who's supposed to believe the falsehood. How is this possible? How can you deceive yourself when you're the one doing the deceiving? Freud's answer was the unconscious. Part of you knows the truth, but another part doesn't. The unconscious knows what the conscious mind doesn't. The id understands what the ego represses. You're split into parts, and one part lies to another part. Problem solved. Except Sartre rejects this completely. Says Freud creates a pseudo-explanation, just moves the problem somewhere else, without actually solving it. Because even in Freud's model, the unconscious must know what it's hiding, must be aware of the truth it's repressing, must understand what it's keeping from consciousness. So how does the unconscious deceive consciousness? Doesn't it have to know what it's doing? And if it knows, if it's aware, then isn't there still self-deception? We've just relocated it to a different part of the mind without explaining how it works. Sartre says, consciousness is transparent to itself, cannot be truly unconscious of anything, cannot split itself into separate compartments that don't know about each other. When you're in bad faith, you know it. You know you're lying to yourself. You're just refusing to acknowledge that you know. The structure is subtle, slippery, paradoxical, hard to pin down precisely because it operates in the peripheral vision of consciousness. Not fully visible, but not completely hidden either. Consciousness is divided from itself, but not split. Being for itself is never identical to itself, always at a distance from itself, can reflect on itself, observe itself, judge itself. This gap, this non-identity, this distance, makes bad faith possible. You can know something and refuse to know that you know it, can see something and refuse to look at it directly, can be aware while directing attention elsewhere. Like peripheral vision, you see something at the edge of your vision, but you don't turn your head to look. It's there. You're aware of it, but you're not fully acknowledging it. Bad faith works in the peripheral vision of consciousness. Present, but not fully acknowledged. Known, but not admitted. Seen, but not examined. Sartre identifies two basic patterns of bad faith. Two fundamental ways we deceive ourselves about what we are. First pattern is affirming facticity while denying transcendence. Treating yourself as determined, fixed, finished. Reducing yourself to a thing rather than a freedom. Claiming you have no choice, no possibility, no future. You say, I can't help being lazy. I was born this way. You reduce yourself to your past, to your habits, to your condition. You act as if you have no freedom, no possibility of change, no capacity to choose differently. You're just this way, fixed, determined, unable to be otherwise. This is bad faith because you're always more than your facticity, always capable of transcending your situation through choice. The lazy person could choose to be disciplined, right now, this moment, could act differently, could create new patterns through new choices. They're not a thing called lazy person. They're a freedom who has repeatedly chosen lazy behaviors and could choose differently at any time. Second pattern is affirming transcendence while denying facticity. Pretending you're pure possibility, unlimited freedom, unconstrained by any situation. Ignoring your body, your circumstances, your limitations, your past. Claiming nothing holds you back, nothing limits you, nothing constrains your choices. You say, I can be anything I want to be if I just believe hard enough. You deny the real constraints that situate your freedom. The poor person claiming they could be rich if they really wanted, ignoring the structural barriers to mobility. The sick person denying their illness affects their choices. Pretending willpower can overcome biology. The old person insisting age doesn't limit them when it clearly does. This is bad faith because freedom is always situated, always exercised within concrete circumstances. You cannot transcend facticity completely, can only transform it through meaning, through choice, through action within constraints. The constraints are real. Pretending they don't exist is lying to yourself. Authentic existence requires holding both facticity and transcendence together, acknowledging what's given while exercising freedom within it, accepting limitations while refusing to be defined by them, recognizing constraints while still choosing within them. But this is difficult, requires constant awareness, requires living intention. Much easier to collapse into one side or the other. Much easier to claim total determinism or total freedom. Much easier to hide in bad faith than live in truth. Most people oscillate between the two patterns, sometimes claiming they're completely determined, sometimes claiming they're completely free, always avoiding the tension of holding both together, always escaping the discomfort of authentic existence. Bad faith is not occasional mistake. It's universal human temptation. The structure of consciousness makes it possible. The burden of freedom makes it attractive. We all do it, constantly. in small ways and large ways, in trivial decisions and life-defining moments. The question is not whether you're ever in bad faith. You are. Everyone is. The question is whether you recognize it and struggle against it, whether you catch yourself doing it and call yourself on it, whether you work toward greater honesty and authenticity, even knowing you'll never fully achieve it. Sartre's most famous example of bad faith comes from a scene he observed in a Parisian cafe, just watching a waiter do his job. But in that simple observation, Sartre saw the structure of bad faith playing out perfectly. The waiter's movements are too precise, too quick, too eager. His voice is too solicitous. His manner is too mechanical. He's not just waiting tables. He's playing at being a waiter, like an actor performing a role on stage. His gestures are theatrical. His behavior is exaggerated. He's not being a waiter. He's performing waiterness. Why is this bad faith? Because he's trying to be a waiter the way a table is a table. He wants to coincide completely with his function, wants to reduce himself to his role, his job, his social identity, wants to become pure waiter, nothing but waiter, wants to eliminate the gap between himself and his function. But he cannot. And this is crucial, because he's human, and humans are not identical to their roles. A table is just a table, nothing more. It has no life outside being a table, no dreams of being something else, no possibility of choosing differently, no gap between what it is and what it does. The table simply is what it is, completely, totally, without remainder. The waiter is not just a waiter. He's also a father, a son, a citizen, a man with hopes and fears and dreams. He has a past that extends beyond waiting tables. He has possibilities that transcend serving coffee. Outside work, he's an entirely different person, with different roles, different relationships, different aspects of his identity. Even within work, he's more than just waiter. He chooses how to perform the role, could quit tomorrow, could slack off, could rebel against expectations, could transform the job through his approach. Every moment he's choosing to continue being waiter, choosing how to be waiter, choosing what kind of waiter to be. The bad faith is in pretending he has no choice, in acting as if waiter is his essence, his nature, his fate, in reducing himself to his function, in trying to be a thing rather than remaining a freedom. He performs the role mechanically because he wants to eliminate choice from it, wants to just be waiter without having to choose how to be waiter, wants the role to determine his behavior so he doesn't have to determine it himself, wants to coincide with his function so there's no gap, no freedom, no responsibility. Why does he do this? Why choose bad faith? Because it's comfortable. The role provides identity without effort, provides stability without anxiety, provides expectations without uncertainty. He knows how to be a waiter, knows what's expected, knows how to perform, doesn't have to face the vertigo of freedom, the anguish of choice, the weight of creating himself moment to moment. Society reinforces this bad faith. Customers want waiters to behave in predictable ways, want them to conform to the role, fulfill the stereotype, meet expectations, don't want a waiter who questions his existence mid-service or discusses philosophy while taking orders, want efficiency, politeness, invisible labor, want the waiter to be a function, not a person. The waiter internalizes these expectations, becomes what others see him as, reduces himself to object for others, lets their gaze define him, loses his freedom in their look, becomes the thing they expect him to be. And we all do this. Every single one of us. In all our roles. The professor who plays at being professor, the exaggerated mannerisms, the theatrical lectures, the performance of expertise, trying to be professor completely, eliminating the gap between person and role, reducing themselves to their function, becoming nothing but professor, the doctor who becomes nothing but doctor, whose entire identity is wrapped up in their profession, who cannot have a conversation without mentioning they're a doctor, cannot see people except as potential patients, cannot conceive of themselves outside their role. They've reduced themselves to their function, eliminated their transcendence, collapsed into their facticity, the parent who reduces themselves to parenting function, whose entire existence becomes serving their children, who has no identity outside being a parent, who cannot imagine what they'll be when the children leave, who define themselves entirely by a role that's temporary, that will end, that cannot contain the fullness of human possibility. Roles are necessary. Social life requires them. We cannot function in society without taking on various roles and performing them adequately. The problem is not playing roles. We must. The problem is becoming identical to them. Believing the role is your essence, rather than your choice. The person who says, "I'm a lawyer, that's who I am." No, you're a person who chose to become a lawyer, chose to go to law school, chose to pass the bar, chose to practice law, choose every day to continue being a lawyer, could choose differently tomorrow, could quit, retrain, pursue something else. Being a lawyer is not your essence. It's your project. It's what you've made yourself through accumulated choices, and you can unmake it through different choices. Your profession is not your identity. Your role is not your essence. Your function is not your being. These are things you do, choices you make, projects you pursue, but you are always more than them, always capable of transcending them, always free to choose differently. Authentic existence means maintaining distance from your roles, performing them while knowing you're performing them, playing them while remembering they're chosen, recognizing the gap between who you are and what you do, acknowledging your freedom, even as you exercise it within social constraints. This is uncomfortable, requires constant awareness, requires living in tension, much easier to sink into the role completely, to become the mask you wear, to let your function define you, to eliminate the gap through bad faith. But that's a kind of death, Sartre would say, becoming a thing instead of remaining a freedom, reducing yourself to object instead of maintaining yourself as subject, existing in bad faith instead of living in truth. Bad faith appears everywhere once you learn to recognize it, in yourself and in others, in small decisions and major life choices, in private moments and public performances. It saturates human existence because the burden of freedom saturates human existence. And wherever there's freedom, there's temptation to flee from it. The person who says, "I'm naturally anxious," they treat anxiety as built into their biology, as part of their nature, as something they cannot help, cannot change, cannot choose differently about. They're just an anxious person. That's their essence. What can they do? But anxiety, in Sartre's view, is chosen. Not the feeling itself, perhaps, not the physical sensations of fear, worry, panic. Those might arise unbidden. But the response to those feelings is chosen. The interpretation of them is chosen. The identity built around them is chosen. You can feel anxiety and choose to act despite it, can choose not to make it central to your self-conception, can choose to see it as feeling rather than essence. Saying, "I feel anxious," is different from saying, "I'm an anxious person." First describes experience. Second, claims essence. Second is bad faith. The racist who says, "I'm not racist, I'm just being realistic." They treat their prejudice as objective observation, as if hatred is not choice but accurate perception. "I'm just noticing patterns. Can't help what I see. Just telling it like it is." They deny they're choosing to hate. Pretend their racism is realism, but seeing itself is interpretive, selective, chosen. You choose what to notice, what to emphasize, what to believe, what conclusions to draw from your observations, what story to tell about what you see. Racism is not realism, it's bad faith. Refusing to acknowledge you chose to hate. The consumer who says, "I have to have this," must have the new phone, even though the old one works fine, must have the luxury car to signal status, must have the designer clothes to feel worthy. "I need it for work. I need it to keep up. I need it to be happy." But you don't need it. You want it. And wanting it is fine. Desire is human. We all want things. But the bad faith is in pretending desire is necessity, in treating choice as compulsion. In saying, I have to have this, when you mean, I want this, and I'm choosing to prioritize having it over other values, like saving money or living simply, or reducing consumption. The workaholic who says, I have no choice, I have to work these hours. Bills to pay, family to support, career to build, competition to beat, all real pressures, all real constraints. But working 80 hours a week is a choice. Checking email at midnight is a choice. Missing your child's recital is a choice. Sacrificing your health is a choice. You're choosing work over other values. Maybe for good reasons. Maybe those reasons make sense to you. Maybe in your situation, it's the choice you believe you must make, but it's still a choice. The bad faith is in denying your choosing, in pretending circumstances force you, in saying, I have no choice, when you mean, this is the choice I believe is best given my priorities and my situation. The political partisan who cannot question their side. Republicans who defend anything Republican regardless of facts. Democrats who justify anything democratic regardless of evidence. My side is right. The other side is evil. Everything my side does is good. Everything their side does is bad. But you chose your side, chose to accept its premises, chose to adopt its values, chose to identify with it, chose to stop questioning it, could have chosen differently, could still choose differently, could change your mind tomorrow if you examine the evidence honestly. Political identity is not innate, not essence, not fate, not something you were born with like eye color. It's accumulated choices you keep making. Choices to attend to certain media and ignore other media. Choices to believe certain narratives and reject others. Choices to associate with certain people who reinforce certain views. All chosen, all changeable, all your responsibility. The bad faith is treating political identity as unchosen, as if you simply are conservative or liberal, as if these labels describe your nature rather than your choices, as if you couldn't think differently if you chose to. The victim, who builds their entire identity around victimhood. Something bad happened to them, something real and terrible. Abuse, trauma, injustice, harm. The victimization itself was not their choice. That was done to them. That was real suffering inflicted by others. But making victimhood their permanent identity is a choice. Defining themselves solely by what was done to them is a choice. Refusing to see themselves as anything but victim is a choice. Treating the past harm as determining their entire future is a choice. This is bad faith because it denies freedom. Even victims remain free in how they respond, can choose healing over festering, can choose growth over stagnation, can choose to become more than what happened to them, can choose to integrate the trauma without being defined by it. This doesn't minimize the trauma, doesn't blame victims for what was done to them, doesn't deny the reality of their suffering. But it recognizes that even in suffering, even after trauma, even bearing scars that never fully heal, choice remains, freedom remains, the possibility of transcendence remains. The addict who says, I can't help it, I'm an addict. Addiction is real, powerful, biological, creates compulsions that feel overwhelming, irresistible, impossible to fight. The grip of addiction can be crushing, can dominate consciousness, can make the substance the only thing that matters. But every drink is still a choice. Every drug is still a choice. Every relapse is still a choice. Difficult choice, agonizing choice. Choice made against intense physical and psychological pressure. Choice that requires immense strength to make differently. But choice, nonetheless. Treatment programs that work recognize this. They don't eliminate the disease model, but they insist on personal responsibility within it. Yes, you have a disease. Yes, the cravings are real. Yes, your brain chemistry is altered, but you're still choosing the substance every time, and you can choose differently, with immense effort, with support, with struggle, but you can choose. The bad faith is in abdicating all responsibility to the addiction, in treating yourself as pure victim of disease, with no agency whatsoever, in saying I can't help it, as if choice has been completely eliminated. Choice hasn't been eliminated. It's been made incredibly difficult. But difficult is not impossible. Hard is not determined. We do this constantly in countless ways because freedom is exhausting, because responsibility is crushing, because admitting we're creating ourselves through our choices is too frightening to face directly for very long. Easier to pretend we're determined. By biology, by upbringing, by trauma, by society, by circumstances, by forces beyond our control. Easier to say, I have no choice, than to own the choices we make. Easier to claim we're victims than to accept we're authors. But the cost is authenticity. The cost is living as thing rather than person. The cost is existing as object rather than subject. The cost is being determined rather than free. And deep down, beneath all our lies and rationalizations and excuses, we know it. We know we're lying to ourselves. We know we're in bad faith. We know we're free and we're choosing and we're responsible. And that knowledge haunts us, no matter how deeply we bury it. If bad faith is the universal human condition, if we're all constantly lying to ourselves about our freedom, then what's the alternative? What would it mean to live differently? What would authentic existence look like? This is where Sartre becomes frustratingly vague. He promises an ethics. He hints at authenticity, but he never fully develops either. Being and nothingness ends with a footnote saying, an ethics will come later. The ethics never fully arrives. His later notebooks try to work it out, but remain incomplete, unpublished, during his lifetime, fragmentary. Still, we can piece together what authentic existence means from what he does say, from the negative examples of bad faith, from the implications of his philosophy, from the lived reality of what it would mean to take his ideas seriously. First principle of authenticity is acknowledging your freedom completely, not denying facticity, but not hiding behind it either, not claiming unlimited transcendence, but not refusing transcendence either, holding the tension between the given and the chosen, between what you cannot change and what you can. You were born into circumstances you didn't choose, into a body you didn't select, into a family you didn't pick, into a society you didn't create, into a historical moment you didn't determine. All of this is facticity, given, unchosen, the raw material of your situation. But what you make of this situation is freedom. How you respond to your body, how you relate to your family, how you position yourself in society, how you understand your historical moment, how you interpret what's given, how you transcend your facticity through meaning. Authentic existence means acknowledging both sides, not pretending you chose your starting point, but not pretending your starting point determines your destination. Both and, not either or. Second principle is taking responsibility without excuses, owning your choices, all of them, even the difficult ones, even the ones you wish you hadn't made, even the ones you made under pressure or in ignorance or with the best intentions that turned out badly. Not blaming circumstances, not blaming other people, not blaming bad luck or bad timing or bad genes, not using your past to excuse your present, not using your situation to justify your actions, not hiding behind determinism when things go wrong. This is my life. I made it this way, through accumulated choices over time, through patterns of behavior I developed, through values I adopted and priorities I set. It might not be the life I wanted, might not be the life I intended, but it's the life I created through my actions. And I own it, all of it, without excuse. Third principle is choosing in full awareness of what you're doing, not acting on autopilot, not following scripts unconsciously, not drifting through life, letting circumstances determine your path, but consciously committing to your projects, deliberately pursuing your values, intentionally creating yourself, knowing you could choose differently but choosing this anyway, knowing other paths are possible but committing to this path, knowing you're free but exercising that freedom in this specific direction. This is conscious choice, authentic choice, choice made in full awareness of being choice. Fourth principle is accepting anguish instead of fleeing from it, facing the groundlessness of existence without panic, living without guarantee, without certainty, without safety net, without foundation, making choices despite knowing you might be wrong, committing despite knowing nothing ensures success. Acting, despite knowing you'll never be certain you did right, the anguish remains. Cannot be eliminated, cannot be escaped, can only be acknowledged, accepted, borne, and the willingness to bear it, to face it directly, to continue choosing despite it, is mark of authentic existence. These principles are not comfortable, not easy, not something you achieve once and maintain forever. Authenticity is not a state you reach. It's a struggle you engage in constantly, a direction you move toward knowing you'll never fully arrive, a practice that requires daily, hourly, moment-to-moment vigilance. Very few examples of authenticity appear in Sartre's work. Most of his examples show bad faith. The waiter, the woman on the date, the coward, the person making excuses. Why so few positive examples? Perhaps because authenticity is rare, because it's difficult, because it's fleeting, perhaps because Sartre himself struggled with it. The intellectual who wrote about engagement, while sometimes avoiding it. The philosopher who advocated political commitment, while sometimes remaining detached. The man who celebrated freedom, while sometimes fleeing from its weight. But some examples emerge. The resistance fighter during the Nazi occupation. Knowing death might come. Knowing capture might bring torture. Knowing their actions might achieve nothing. Knowing the cause might fail. Still choosing resistance because it's their choice, their commitment, their project. Not because success is guaranteed, not because God will reward them, not because history is on their side, but because this is what they choose to fight for. They own it completely, without excuse, without illusion, without pretending circumstances forced them. They could have collaborated, could have fled, could have hidden, could have stayed neutral. They chose differently, and they accept all consequences of that choice. This is authentic because it's conscious, owned, committed, chosen, in full awareness. The artist who creates without regard for reception, not seeking approval, not chasing fame, not following trends or markets or public taste, but expressing their vision because that's their project. That's what they choose to pursue. That's the life they choose to live. Success or failure doesn't determine the authenticity. Commercial success doesn't make the art more authentic. Critical acclaim doesn't validate the choice. Public indifference doesn't invalidate it. The authenticity is in the commitment, in the conscious choice to create, in the full ownership of that choice, regardless of outcome. The person who changes careers midlife, not because circumstances force them, but because they recognize their current path was not really their choice, was following others' expectations, was conforming to social scripts, was living someone else's life. They owned that bad faith, acknowledged they'd been lying to themselves, and chose differently, accepting all costs, financial insecurity, social judgment, starting over, fear of failure, loss of status, uncertainty about the future, all accepted as price of living authentically, of choosing their own path instead of following the path chosen for them. This is authentic because it's conscious recognition of bad faith, followed by conscious choice to change, not claiming the past was forced on them, but choosing differently for the future, taking responsibility both for having been in bad faith and for the difficult choice to move toward authenticity. Authenticity doesn't mean always being right, doesn't mean never regretting choices, doesn't mean perfect wisdom or flawless judgment. Means making choices in full awareness, taking responsibility for consequences, owning what you've done and who you've become, without pretending you had no choice, without claiming circumstances determined everything. If there are no objective values, can there be ethics? If everything is permitted, can anything be wrong? If we create values rather than discover them, what grounds moral judgment? Sartre's answer is subtle and often misunderstood. Yes, there can be ethics, but not in the traditional sense. Ethics doesn't come from God or nature or reason or tradition. It comes from freedom itself, from the recognition of what we are as free beings, from the implications of taking our freedom seriously. The moment you recognize your freedom, you must will freedom for everyone, not as logical necessity, not because reason demands it, but as existential commitment, as recognition of what freedom implies, as acknowledgement of the human condition we all share. You cannot want freedom for yourself while denying it to others, cannot celebrate your own freedom while oppressing others, cannot exercise your transcendence while reducing others to objects. Because your freedom depends on theirs. Your projects require their cooperation. Your values need their recognition. Your very existence is intertwined with theirs. You exist in a world with other free consciousnesses. They see you, they judge you, they resist you, they support you, they recognize you or refuse recognition. Your projects intersect with their projects. Your freedom encounters their freedom. Your transcendence meets their transcendence. Cannot be anything unless others see you as such. Cannot have values unless others acknowledge them. Cannot create meaning unless others participate in it. The look of the other both threatens you and confirms you. Both objectifies you and recognizes you. Both limits your freedom and makes your freedom meaningful. So willing their freedom is willing your own. Creating conditions for them to choose is creating conditions for yourself to choose. Supporting their projects is making your projects possible. Recognizing their transcendence is maintaining your own. This creates an ethics, though not a traditional one. Actions that promote freedom are good. Actions that deny freedom are bad. Not abstractly but concretely, in specific situations, with specific people, in specific contexts. The oppressor acts in bad faith and commits evil, treating others as pure objects, denying their freedom, using them as means without recognizing them as ends, reducing them to things, tools, instruments. Slavery is evil because it denies freedom completely. Torture is evil because it destroys the capacity to choose. Oppression is evil because it constrains freedom while pretending to eliminate it. These acts are wrong because they deny the fundamental human reality. We are freedoms, not things. We are subjects, not objects. We are por soi, not on soi. To treat humans as things is to deny what humans are. To oppress freedom is to contradict the human condition. The liberator acts authentically and does good, recognizing others' freedom, supporting their projects, creating conditions for them to choose, fighting against systems that deny freedom, resisting oppression wherever it appears, not because of abstract principle but because of concrete recognition. These are free beings, like me. Their freedom is bound up with mine. Their oppression diminishes me. Their liberation empowers me. This doesn't mean relativism. Doesn't mean anything goes. Doesn't mean all choices are equal. Some acts clearly deny freedom. Slavery, torture, oppression, domination. These are clearly wrong because they clearly contradict what humans are. Other situations are more complex, ambiguous, difficult. The student's dilemma during the war. Stay with mother or join resistance. Both choices involve freedom and responsibility. No rule determines which is right. Must choose and accept that you chose. The ethics is in the choosing itself, in the full consciousness of choice, in the complete ownership of consequences, not in following predetermined rules. Revolutionary violence poses especially difficult questions. Sartre sometimes justified it. When the oppressed fight for freedom against their oppressors. When violence is the only way to break chains that cannot be broken peacefully. When the system itself is violence, and resistance requires violence to stop it. But he insisted violence must be chosen, not excused. Cannot claim, they made me violent. Cannot hide behind necessity or inevitability. Must own the violence. Must accept responsibility for it. Must judge it by whether it promotes freedom or denies it, whether it liberates or merely exchanges one oppression for another. This is not comfortable ethics. No simple rules. No clear guidelines. No guaranteed rightness. Must choose in ambiguity. Must commit despite uncertainty. Must take responsibility for consequences you cannot fully predict. Must accept that you might be wrong while still choosing. The only dishonesty, the only real evil, is claiming you had no choice, pretending circumstances forced you, denying your freedom, treating yourself or others as things. This is bad faith, and it's the fundamental moral failure. not because it breaks divine law, but because it denies human reality. The most radical part of Sartre's ethics, the part that makes every choice infinitely heavy, the recognition that when you choose, you don't just choose for yourself in isolation, you choose for everyone. You create an image of humanity. You vote for what humans should be. If you choose marriage, you're not just expressing personal preference, you're affirming marriage as an institution, saying this is valuable, this is how humans should form bonds. This kind of commitment is right. You're creating marriage as a value, not just for yourself, but as possibility for humanity. If you choose honesty in a difficult situation, you're not just being truthful this once. You're affirming honesty as a human value, saying humans can be honest even when it's hard, creating a possibility, demonstrating what's achievable, voting for a world where people tell truth despite cost. If you choose cowardice, you're not just being cowardly in this moment, you're creating the coward, giving cowardice form, reality, existence in the world, making it a human possibility, showing that humans can be cowards, demonstrating that fear wins, voting for a world where people run. Every act is a vote for what humanity should be, not in some abstract metaphysical sense, not in afterlife or cosmic ledger, but here, now, in concrete reality, your actions create meaning, add to the human repertoire of possibilities, shape what others understand as possible, normal, acceptable. Young people see how adults live, learn what's possible by watching what people do. Your choices become their options. Your life becomes their reference point. If you live authentically, you show authenticity is possible. If you take responsibility, you show responsibility is viable. If you engage with freedom, you demonstrate freedom can be born. But if you hide in bad faith, you model bad faith. If you deny responsibility, you teach irresponsibility. If you flee from freedom, you suggest freedom must be fled from. Your choices don't just affect you. They create patterns others follow, create norms others adopt, create possibilities others pursue or reject. This creates enormous responsibility, not abstract duty to humanity, but concrete impact on actual people. Your children watch how you handle freedom, difficulty, choice. Your students see how you respond to challenges. Your community observes whether you engage or withdraw. They learn from what you do, not what you say. Sartre gives the example of marriage again. When you marry, you're not just doing what you want. You're affirming marriage as institution, saying this kind of bond is valuable. This form of commitment is right. This way of organizing relationships should exist. You might argue, no, I'm just expressing personal preference, just doing what makes me happy, not making statement about anyone else. But Sartre says, you cannot avoid making a statement. Your actions speak, whether you intend them to or not. You create meaning simply by existing and choosing. You cannot not participate in creating human values, cannot not vote for what humanity should be. The question is whether you own this responsibility, whether you choose consciously what values you create, or pretend your choices affect no one but yourself, whether you face the weight of choosing for all humanity, or hide from it by claiming you're just doing your thing. This connects to Kant's categorical imperative. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can will that it should become a universal law. Act as if everyone will follow your example. Act so that your action could be universalized, but without Kant's rational foundation, without the argument from pure reason, without the claim that morality is discovered through logic. For Sartre, it's not that reason demands you consider universalizability, it's that freedom requires it. When you choose, you inevitably choose for all humanity, whether you acknowledge it or not. When you choose, ask yourself, would I want everyone to choose this way? If everyone acted as I'm acting, what world would we have? Not as logical test, but as existential confrontation, with the weight of your freedom, with the responsibility of creating humanity, with the recognition that your life is not just your life. Your life is a possibility, a model, a vote for what human beings are and can be. You're not just living your life, you're showing what a life can be. You're demonstrating what humans can do. You're creating patterns others might follow, and you cannot escape this. Cannot choose for yourself alone. Cannot affect only your own life. Cannot avoid creating meaning that ripples outward. Your freedom is not private. Your choices are not isolated. Your existence creates value in a world that watches, learns, and responds. This is why anguish is so profound, why responsibility is so heavy, why authentic existence is so demanding. Because every choice carries the weight of humanity. Every action votes for what we should be. Every life models what's possible. You are condemned to be free, and your freedom creates the world. Sartre died in 1980, more than 40 years ago. The world has changed dramatically since then. Technology has transformed how we live. Science has revealed more about brain and behavior. Social media has reshaped human interaction. The problems we face are different from the problems of post-war Europe, but his insights about freedom remain eerily relevant, perhaps more relevant now than ever, because we face new forms of bad faith, new ways to deny our freedom, new excuses for claiming we're not responsible, new technologies and ideologies that make it easier than ever to hide from the truth of what we are. We live in an age of determinism, an age where multiple powerful narratives tell us we're not really free, not really choosing, not really responsible, where science, technology, and ideology converge to create elaborate justifications for denying human agency. Neuroscience says free will is an illusion. Brain scans show decisions happening before conscious awareness. Neural activity precedes the feeling of choosing. By the time you think you've decided, your brain has already decided for you. You're just along for the ride, just a passenger in your own body. Just consciousness, observing what the brain does automatically. The conclusion seems obvious. Free will doesn't exist. Choice is epiphenomenal. Responsibility is a fiction. We're just biological machines, running programs we didn't write. Determined by neural activity we don't control. Responding to chemical signals we don't choose. Sartre would reject this completely. Not denying brain activity is real. Not denying neural processes matter. But denying that understanding mechanism eliminates agency. The brain is not something controlling you. The brain is you choosing. Neural activity is not cause of choice. Neural activity is what choice looks like physically. Understanding how choice works in the brain doesn't prove choice doesn't exist, just shows the physical basis of choice, the material substrate through which freedom operates. You're not controlled by your brain. You are your brain choosing. The activity observed in brain scans is you deciding, not something making you decide. Genetics provides another deterministic narrative. Your genes influence your personality, determine your intelligence, shape your temperament, create predispositions towards certain behaviors. The twin studies show strong genetic components for traits we thought were learned. Nature matters more than we thought. Biology shapes us more than we acknowledged. So, who you are is largely determined before birth, written in your DNA, programmed by evolution. You didn't choose your genes, can't change your genetic inheritance, can't escape the biological foundation of your being. What freedom is left? But Sartre would insist, genes are facticity, not destiny. Yes, you inherit biological tendencies. Yes, your body comes with certain predispositions. Yes, some traits are more heritable than others, but tendency is not determination. Predisposition is not fate. Genes influence, but don't eliminate choice. You're still deciding what to make of your genetic inheritance, still choosing how to respond to your biological tendencies, still transcending your facticity through meaning. The genes provide the raw material. You decide what to build with it. Psychology offers sophisticated bad faith through concepts like trauma, conditioning, defense mechanisms, unconscious drives. Childhood experiences shape adult behavior. Past abuse creates present dysfunction. Unresolved conflicts drive current actions. You're not choosing. You're reacting to programming, laid down before you were conscious enough to resist it. Therapy reveals how you're determined by forces you didn't understand. How your problems aren't your fault. How you're not responsible because you're just acting out scripts written in childhood. The goal becomes understanding these forces, seeing how you're determined, accepting that you're not to blame. Sartre would say, past shapes but doesn't determine. Yes, childhood matters. Yes, trauma affects you. Yes, early experiences influence later behavior, but influence is not causation. Understanding origins doesn't eliminate responsibility. Seeing how you got here doesn't mean you can't choose differently now. Past is facticity. What you make of the past is freedom. You can transcend your history through reinterpretation, can transform your relationship to trauma through meaning, can choose different responses to similar situations. The patterns are real but not fixed. The influences are strong but not deterministic. You remain free to choose your response. The danger comes when we believe these deterministic narratives completely, when we let them remove all sense of agency, when we treat ourselves as pure products of brain chemistry, genetic programming, and childhood conditioning, when we say, my brain made me do it, or my genes determine who I am, or my trauma means I can't help it. This is bad faith in new language, using scientific concepts to escape responsibility, using biological facts to deny freedom, using psychological understanding to claim determinism, treating yourself as object to be studied rather than subject who chooses. The facts these narratives point to are real. Brain activity, genetic influence, traumatic impact, all real. But the interpretation that these facts eliminate freedom is false, is bad faith, is denial of what we are. We remain free within our facticity, remain capable of transcending our situation, remain responsible for what we make of what's been made of us. Social media creates perfect environment for bad faith. Everyone performing versions of themselves, curating images, crafting personas, seeking validation through likes, comments, shares, follows, reducing themselves to data points, to profiles, to content. You present yourself as you want to be seen. Select which photos to post, edit which moments to share, control which aspects of your life appear. Create a version of yourself that's part truth, part fiction, part aspiration, a self constructed for consumption by others. This is like Sartre's waiter, but in digital space. Playing at being yourself, performing your identity rather than simply having it. Creating theatrical version of your life where everything is slightly exaggerated, slightly artificial, slightly calculated. The person who posts carefully curated photos suggesting perfect life while struggling privately with depression. The influencer who performs authenticity, stages vulnerable moments, crafts spontaneous seeming content that's actually planned and edited and optimized for engagement. The professional who projects competence and confidence online while feeling imposter syndrome and barely holding it together offline. We're all playing roles, creating personas, performing versions of ourselves that are part us and part fiction. And the bad faith comes from losing track of the gap, from starting to believe the performance, from reducing ourselves to our online presence, from defining ourselves by how others see us in carefully crafted digital spaces. This is reduction to being for others in Sartre's sense. Defining yourself entirely by how you appear to others, becoming object of the look, losing your subjectivity in others' gaze, treating yourself as thing to be seen rather than consciousness doing the seeing. Social media platforms are designed to encourage this. The entire structure rewards performance. Algorithms boost content that gets engagement. Metrics measure your success by others' responses. Your feed becomes mirror, showing you who you are through others' eyes. You become what you project, and what you project is determined by what gets likes. The facticity of social media is real. It exists. It influences. It shapes social reality, increasingly determines how people interact, form relationships, understand themselves. But we're not determined by it. We choose to participate, choose how to participate, choose what to post and what to keep private, choose how much weight to give others' responses, choose whether to let metrics define our worth. Could quit tomorrow, could delete accounts, could refuse to play the game, could participate differently, could use platforms for connection rather than performance, could resist the pressure to curate, could be messier, more honest, less optimized, could remember that the self presented online is chosen, not natural, is performance, not essence. But most people don't. Most sink into the bad faith. Let the performance become the self. Let others' validation determine their value. Let algorithms shape their choices. Then claim they have no choice. Everyone's on social media. I need it for work. I can't afford to opt out. Treating chosen participation as forced participation. The addiction metaphor is used constantly. I'm addicted to social media. Can't stop checking my phone. The algorithm controls me. Treating yourself as victim of technology, as determined by design, as having no agency, but addiction language, while capturing something real about the difficulty of resisting, is also bad faith. You're choosing to check your phone every 5 minutes. Difficult to stop. Yes. Uncomfortable to resist. Yes. But still choice. Not biological addiction like heroin, where your body develops physical dependence, but learned pattern you've reinforced through repetition and can unlearn through different choices. Sartre would insist on maintaining that distinction between difficulty and impossibility, between strong inclination and total determinism, between being influenced and being controlled. You're influenced by social media, shaped by it, tempted by it, but not controlled by it, not determined by it, not eliminated as choosing agent by it. Climate crisis reveals the existential dilemma at global scale. We are collectively condemned to be free. Free to destroy the planet or save it. Free to act or remain passive. Free to change course or continue on the path to catastrophe. Condemned because we didn't create this situation. Previous generations made choices that created the crisis. Industrialization, fossil fuel dependence, unsustainable growth. We inherit a problem we didn't cause. Born into a world already warming, already degrading, already approaching tipping points. But we're totally responsible for what we do now. Cannot blame the past, cannot wait for the future, cannot pass the buck to someone else. Must choose now how to respond, how to live, what to prioritize, what to sacrifice, what to fight for. The bad faith is overwhelming. Everywhere you look, people denying their responsibility, hiding behind excuses, pretending they have no choice. I'm just one person. What can I do? Treating individual action as meaningless, as too small to matter, as not worth the effort because the problem is too big. Using the scale of the crisis to justify inaction. The facticity of being one person among billions becomes excuse for doing nothing. Corporations are responsible, not individuals, pointing to systemic causes to avoid personal responsibility. Yes, corporations produce most emissions. Yes, systemic change is necessary. But corporations serve consumers. They produce what we buy. They exist because we choose their products. Individual choices aggregate into collective patterns that corporations serve. Blaming corporations is bad faith way of avoiding looking at our own choices. Technology will solve it. Putting faith in future innovation to avoid present sacrifice. Waiting for someone to invent clean energy or carbon capture or some miraculous solution. Using hope for future technology as excuse for present inaction. This is bad faith because it treats the future as determined, as guaranteed to produce solution, when really the future depends entirely on choices being made now. Government will handle it. Waiting for policy, regulation, international agreement. Treating climate as political problem someone else will solve. Yes, government action is necessary. But government responds to pressure. Changes when people demand change. Waiting passively for government to act while doing nothing yourself is bad faith. Is treating yourself as subject of government rather than citizen who shapes government. Every one of these excuses contains element of truth. You are just one person. Corporations do cause most emissions. Technology might help. Government must act. But using these truths to deny your own responsibility is bad faith. Is hiding behind facticity to escape freedom. Every choice matters. What you eat, how you travel, what you buy, how you vote, whether you pressure companies and politicians, whether you organize with others, whether you change your career to work on solutions. whether you sacrifice comfort for principle. These are choices creating the future, not individually determining it, not single-handedly solving the crisis, but contributing to the collective pattern, voting through your actions for what humans should do, creating small ripples that combine with other ripples to become currents that shift systems. The despair is appropriate here. Cannot guarantee your actions will matter, cannot control whether others act, cannot ensure the crisis will be solved, might do everything right and still fail, might make every sacrifice and still watch the world burn. But that's exactly when authentic action is necessary. Acting without hope in Sartre's sense, committing despite uncertainty, doing what's right because it's your choice, not because success is guaranteed, not because someone will reward you, not because the future is assured, but because this is what you choose to do with your freedom. The anguish is crushing. Weight of choosing for all humanity while knowing your individual actions seem insignificant. Your carbon footprint is vote for what humans should do. Your lifestyle is model for what's acceptable. Your engagement or passivity teaches others what's possible. Every flight you take says flying is acceptable. Every car you drive says driving is normal. Every purchase you make says consuming is fine. Every time you choose convenience over environment, you vote for convenience. And your vote combines with billions of others to create the world. Sartre would say, own it. Don't pretend you have no choice. Don't hide behind necessity, convenience, normalization. If you choose comfort over planet, own that choice. Acknowledge you're valuing your present comfort over future catastrophe. Acknowledge you're choosing individual benefit over collective survival. Acknowledge you're contributing to the problem. If you choose to act, commit fully without guarantee. Change your life. Make sacrifices. Fight for change. Organize with others. Pressure systems. Demand transformation. But do it knowing you might fail. Knowing it might not be enough. Knowing the crisis might worsen despite your efforts. This is authentic response to climate change. Not optimism, not pessimism, but clear-eyed engagement. Acting without guarantee because you're free to act. Taking responsibility without excuse because responsibility cannot be escaped. Choosing what to do with your freedom even as the weight of that freedom threatens to crush you. The abandonment is total. No God will save the planet. No invisible hand will restore balance. No natural law will prevent catastrophe. No inevitable progress will solve the problem. Only human choice, billions of them, accumulated over time, creating future through decisions made or unmade, actions taken or avoided, freedom exercised or fled from. We are condemned to be free, even collectively, and the condemnation has never felt heavier, never more consequential, never more urgent. The freedom we didn't ask for, the responsibility we cannot escape, the choice that determines whether the species survives. We've traveled deep into Sartre's philosophy, explored freedom and anguish, and abandonment and despair, examined bad faith and authenticity, applied these ideas to modern life. What remains is the simple, terrible, beautiful truth that underlies everything. You are free, more free than you probably want to be, more responsible than comfortable to acknowledge, more powerful than you usually admit, and more alone with that power than you might wish. You're creating your life with every choice, not finding your true self, but making yourself through action, not following predetermined path, but carving path as you go, not fulfilling destiny, but creating destiny through accumulated decisions. And you cannot stop, cannot opt out, cannot hand it over to someone else, cannot become passive recipient of life, cannot eliminate the burden of choosing. This is your condemnation, not chosen but inescapable, not comfortable but undeniable, not fair but real. Sartre's philosophy can seem dark, harsh, overwhelming, stripping away comforts, removing excuses, demanding total responsibility. Why subject yourself to this? Why not remain in bad faith if it's more comfortable? Several answers emerge from taking the ideas seriously. First, bad faith doesn't actually work. Deep down, you know you're lying to yourself. The discomfort remains. The anguish lurks. You feel the gap between what you claim and what you know. Living in bad faith creates different suffering. The suffering of inauthenticity, of being false to yourself, of knowing you're not fully alive, not really choosing, just going through motions, playing roles, avoiding life. The lie doesn't eliminate the anguish, just buries it deeper, where it festers, where it creates different problems: depression, anxiety, meaninglessness, emptiness, the feeling that something's wrong but you can't name what, the sense you're living someone else's life, the knowledge you're wasting your existence on things that don't matter. Bad faith might seem easier in the moment, but over time, over years, over decades, it creates deeper suffering than facing freedom directly. The suffering of living as thing rather than person, of existing in bad faith rather than living in truth. Second, freedom acknowledged is power reclaimed. When you admit you're free, you stop being victim, stop blaming circumstances, stop waiting for someone else to fix your life, stop treating yourself as passive object acted upon by forces beyond your control. You start recognizing your agency, your capability, your possibility, and this is terrifying, but it's also liberating. You can change, you can choose differently, you can become, not trapped by past, not determined by present, open to future you create. Everything might be difficult: changing career at 40, ending relationship after decades, confronting trauma, admitting you were wrong, starting over, taking risks, facing fear. All of this is hard. But acknowledging it's possible, acknowledging you can do it, acknowledging the power is yours, this removes the excuse and reveals the path. Third, authenticity connects you to reality. Living in bad faith is living in illusion, pretending things are other than they are, creating false narratives, believing comfortable lies, hiding from truth. Authentic existence means seeing clearly, accepting what is while recognizing what could be, facing facts without flinching, acknowledging both the terrible and the beautiful, the freedom and the limits, the power and the finitude, the choice and the constraint. This clarity, though painful, is better than delusion. Better to see truth and suffer than hide in comfort and decay. Better to face reality and choose than avoid reality and drift. Better to live in anguish than die in bad faith. Fourth, taking responsibility gives life meaning. If everything is predetermined, nothing matters. Your choices don't count. Your actions don't matter. Just going through motions determined before you were born. Just playing out script written by genes, environment, history, fate. But if you're truly free, truly choosing, truly responsible, then everything you do matters. Every choice creates value. Every action has weight. Your life is yours to make, and that gives it significance. Not handed down from above, not guaranteed by cosmic order, but created through your freedom, your choices, your commitment. The burden is also the gift. Being condemned to freedom is being condemned to matter, to count, to create, to make difference, even if small, even if local, even if temporary, even if no one remembers. You matter because you're free, and your freedom makes everything you do significant. How do you actually live with this philosophy? Not just understand it intellectually, not just appreciate it abstractly, but embody it, practice it, make it real in daily life. Some approaches emerge from taking the ideas seriously. First practice is radical honesty about your choices. Catch yourself when you say, "I have to." Question whether that's true. Do you really have to, or are you choosing to? When you say, "I have no choice," stop. Examine that claim. What choices actually exist? What are you avoiding seeing? What freedom are you denying? Not to blame yourself, not to feel guilty, but to recognize your agency accurately, to see clearly what you can and cannot control, to take responsibility for what's actually yours while releasing responsibility for what's not. This becomes habit, pattern of consciousness, way of relating to your decisions. You start noticing bad faith as it happens, catching yourself in the lie, acknowledging the freedom you're trying to hide from, owning the choice you're making while pretending you're not. Second practice is accepting anguish as signal. When you feel anxious about decision, don't immediately flee into distraction or rationalization or advice seeking. Sit with it. Feel it. Let it tell you something. The anguish confirms your freedom, tells you this matters. This choice counts. This is real. The anxiety is not problem to eliminate. It's recognition of weight, of responsibility, of significance. It means you're facing your freedom rather than fleeing from it. Learn to distinguish anxiety that comes from confronting freedom from anxiety that comes from avoiding freedom. First kind is anguish in Sartre's sense. Healthy, necessary, sign of authentic engagement. Second kind is symptom of bad faith, of trying to escape what cannot be escaped, of treating yourself as object rather than subject. Third practice is committing despite uncertainty. Stop waiting for perfect clarity. Stop seeking guarantees. Stop needing to know everything will work out before you choose. Make decisions without certainty. Commit to projects without knowing they'll succeed. Act despite possibility of failure. This is living in despair, in Sartre's sense. Not giving up, but engaging fully while acknowledging limits of control. Career choice, relationship choice, creative project, political commitment, all require acting before you know outcome. Choose anyway. Commit fully. Accept consequences. Fourth practice is regularly questioning your identity. Who you think you are is not fixed essence. It's accumulated choices you keep making, patterns you've developed, roles you've adopted, projects you've committed to, all chosen, all changeable, all your creation. Periodically ask yourself, am I choosing this identity? Or am I trapped in it? Am I actively creating this person? Or am I passively being this person, out of habit? If trapped, if you discover you're in bad faith, if you recognize you've been following script rather than writing your own story, you can choose differently, can recreate yourself through new actions, can become someone else by acting like someone else consistently over time. Your past doesn't imprison you. Your identity doesn't fix you. Your essence is not determined. At any moment, you can transcend what you've been by choosing to become something different. Fifth practice is taking responsibility for your influence. Your choices affect others, whether you intend them to or not. Your children watch you. Your community sees you. Your actions create patterns others notice and sometimes follow. What model are you providing? What possibilities are you creating or foreclosing? What values are you demonstrating through your life? When you choose for humanity. Your life votes for what humans should be. Own that weight. Bear it consciously. Choose knowing others are watching and learning. This isn't guilt trip. It's reality check. You matter. Your actions count. Your life creates meaning beyond yourself. Recognize this. Accept it. Let it inform your choices. Let it add weight to your decisions. Let it make you more careful, more conscious, more committed to living well. We return to where we started. The opening paradox. Being condemned to freedom sounds contradictory. But now, the meaning should be clear. You did not choose to exist, but you must choose what to make of existence. Cannot escape choosing. Even refusing to choose is a choice. Even bad faith is choice. To flee from choice. Even passivity is decision to be passive. You are condemned because you cannot stop being free. From birth to death, every moment is choice. Creating yourself, creating values, creating meaning. Nothing determines this for you. No essence guides you. No nature constrains you. No God decides for you. Or if he does, you must choose whether to listen. Everything falls back on you. Your responsibility, your freedom, your condemnation. And this is the human condition. Not some people, not sometimes, but always. Every person faces this, whether they acknowledge it or not. The project of life is unavoidable. You're already in it, already choosing, already creating yourself through your actions. Question is only whether you do it consciously, whether you face your freedom or flee from it, whether you live authentically or in bad faith. Sartre offers no comfort, no easy answers, no guarantee everything will work out, no promise that living authentically will make you happy or successful or fulfilled. Just the harsh truth about what we are. Not things but freedoms. Not determined but open. Not finished but always becoming. Not given meaning but creating meaning. Not passive recipients but active authors. And in that truth, difficult as it is, harsh as it sounds, demanding as it proves, there is dignity, there is power, there is possibility. You are condemned to be free. And that condemnation is the deepest truth of human existence. The burden you carry from first breath to last, the weight that makes you human, the freedom you cannot escape, the responsibility you cannot avoid, the choice that defines every moment, the condemnation that is also your greatest power. You are free. You are always choosing. You are creating yourself. And you are alone with this burden, condemned to carry it, unable to escape it, forced to bear it, whether you want to or not. This is what Sartre means when he says you're condemned to be free. This is the weight you carry. This is the truth you face. This is the human condition in all its terrible, beautiful, undeniable reality. We've traveled through the depths of Sartre's philosophy, explored every corner of what it means to be condemned to freedom, examined the structure of existence, the flight from responsibility, the struggle for authenticity. What remains is simple, terrible, beautiful, true. You are free, more free than you usually admit, more powerful than you typically acknowledge, more responsible than you want to be, and more alone with that power than you probably wish. Every moment of your life, you're choosing, creating yourself through action, making yourself through accumulated decisions, becoming through behavior repeated until it solidifies into pattern, into identity, into what you call your essence. But essence is never fixed, never final, never complete, always revisable through new choice, always changeable through different action, always open to transformation through committed decision to become different. You are not what you were meant to be. You are what you've made yourself, and you can remake yourself at any moment through choosing differently. This is your freedom. This is your power. This is your burden, and you cannot escape it, cannot hand it to someone else, cannot eliminate it through bad faith, cannot avoid it through distraction, cannot deny it without lying to yourself. It's there, always, inescapable, fundamental, the structure of your being, the truth of what you are. Sartre's philosophy is harsh because reality is harsh. We want meaning handed to us, want purpose given from above, want to believe we're here for a reason, want cosmic guarantee our lives matter, want someone to tell us what to do, how to live, who to be. But we're just here, existing, choosing, creating meaning where none exists, making purpose through committed action, building lives out of nothing but freedom, constructing significance through choice. And that freedom, that terrible gift, is both your condemnation and your liberation, the burden that makes you human, the weight that gives your life meaning, the responsibility that creates your dignity, the choice that defines your existence. You are condemned to be free. Now you know what that means. Question is, what you'll do about it. Will you hide in bad faith? Pretend you have no choice? Blame circumstances for what you've become? Treat yourself as victim rather than author? Flee from the weight of your freedom into comfortable lies? Or will you face it? Acknowledge your freedom fully. Take responsibility without excuse. Live authentically despite the anguish. Bear the weight of choosing, knowing you might be wrong. Act without guarantee. Commit despite uncertainty. Create yourself consciously, rather than drifting unconsciously. These are not rhetorical questions. They're the questions you answer with your life. Every day, every choice, every action, you're answering who you choose to be. And in answering, you're becoming not what you were meant to be, but what you make yourself through accumulated choices. This moment right now, as you hear these words, as you consider these ideas, as you face the truth of your freedom, you're choosing, what to do with this information, what to make of this philosophy, how to respond to this confrontation with your own freedom. You could dismiss it, could forget it, could return to comfortable bad faith, could pretend you never heard this, could go back to blaming circumstances and claiming you have no choice. That's a choice, and you'd be responsible for it. Or you could take it seriously, could let it change you, could start noticing your freedom, could begin catching yourself in bad faith, could practice living more authentically, could accept the weight of your responsibility, could face your anguish rather than flee from it. That's also a choice, and you'd be responsible for that too. Either way, you're choosing, you're free, you're responsible, you're creating yourself right now through how you respond to this moment, and that choice, like every choice, is yours alone to make. You are condemned to be free. The condemnation is happening right now, in this moment, as you choose what to do next, as you decide who to be, as you create yourself through action or inaction, engagement or withdrawal, authenticity or bad faith. Choose consciously. Choose authentically. Choose, knowing you're choosing for all humanity. Choose bearing the full weight of your freedom. Choose accepting you might be wrong. Choose committing despite uncertainty. Choose living despite the anguish. Or don't. That's also a choice, and you'll have to own it, because you are condemned to be free, and that condemnation defines every moment of your existence. From this moment until your last, you are always choosing, always free, always responsible, always creating yourself, always alone with that burden. This is the human condition. This is what you are. This is the weight you carry. This is the freedom you cannot escape. This is your condemnation, and it's also your power, your dignity, your possibility, your life. Now you know, and knowing changes everything, because you can never fully unknow it, never completely return to the comfort of believing you have no choice. The truth has been spoken. The reality has been revealed. Your freedom has been named. What you do with that knowledge is up to you, as everything is up to you, as it always has been, as it always will be, until the moment you stop existing, until your freedom finally ends, until the condemnation is lifted by death. But until then, you are condemned to be free, and that condemnation is both your burden and your gift, the weight that crushes and the power that creates, the truth that terrifies and the reality that liberates. You are free, you are choosing, you are responsible, you are creating yourself. And you are doing it right now, in this moment, as you decide what to make of everything you've just heard. Choose well, or choose poorly, but choose consciously. Choose authentically. Choose owning the full weight of your freedom, because you are condemned to be free, and that condemnation is the deepest, most fundamental, most inescapable truth of what it means to be human. If this confrontation with your freedom made you think, if it challenged you, if it changed something in how you see your choices, hit that like button. Subscribe for more philosophy that doesn't comfort but confronts, that doesn't reassure but reveals truth, even when truth is difficult. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone blaming circumstances, someone hiding from responsibility, someone pretending they have no choice. Because we all need reminding sometimes that we're free, we're responsible, we're creating ourselves, whether we admit it or not. Until next time, remember, you're condemned to be free. That condemnation is happening right now, and what you do with it is entirely, completely, absolutely up to you.